Hi, I'm Daniel Golden, the proprietor of Boswell. For us, it's day 4,264. For today's event, I'm going to introduce Aileen Roar, the proprietor of Inklink. Take it away, Kayleen.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and happy holidays. I'm Kayleen at Inklink Books in East Troy, and Daniel and I are delighted to be hosting Jane Hamilton and Kevin Henkes. You can take it away, Jane.
Wait, one thing before you go, because
Yes.
I don't have a stuffed lion. I gave it to a young friend of mine. Could you hold up the lion that do you have one nearby?
I don't. I sold out.
Oh, you sold. Kevin has one. Oh, and it's so soft. I have to say, I just want to push this merch because it's just such a good stuffed animal, and I love it. And if I didn't have way too many living cats, I would get one for myself. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay.
Hi, Kayleen.
Kevin, welcome to Inkwell and to Boswell's and to Southeastern Wisconsin. And it's so great to be in your company. And I just was thinking that in the old days, and they will come again, Kayleen at her store, Inklink, often has these dinners to celebrate books and the writer, and they're called the Read and Feed, which I love. And the writer comes and people come with the books, and all the food that the chef prepares is in relation to the book. And you've already done one and you know how that goes, but they're really wonderful events. And I was thinking that if there had been a Read and Feed for Sunflower Lion, the whole menu would be cookies in every form.
That would be great.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Anyway, I just wonder, there's so much to say and hear, and so many questions, but think that this is a perfect book. You've written many perfect books, and this is one of them. It all feels inevitable, and the arc of it is gorgeous. So could you tell us about how the idea came to you and how the book evolved?
It's so amazing to me that a book so simple could come from so many different seeds. One of the very first things I thought about was I had done a book called A Good Day, and it was very young, very simple, and there are 4 characters, and each one has a story, and it goes up and it goes down. So it's essentially a 2-sentence story for each one. And I wanted to do something similar to that. Another seed was, I love a book called A Moon or a Button by Ruth Krauss with pictures by Remy Charlotte. And the subtitle is A Collection of First Picture Ideas. And the title sort of explains what the book is. A moon or a button. There is a picture of a sky or just a field of, I think it's gray with a white circle on it. And it says a moon or a button. And I was thinking that whole idea of a picture idea. And so I started thinking about, what if I did something that could be other things? And I did sketches. I don't know, can you see this? This is, I thought very simply, like a triangle could be a mountain, could be a sailboat, it could be a tree.
Wait, could you just hold that up just really right to the camera? Little, yeah. Okay, good, great. So a mountain, a
Sailboat.
A sailboat, or a tree. Okay.
And so this is just brainstorming. And then I did this, and this got me closer to what I was thinking of. This is a bird, a whale, and a pear. And I thought, oh, well, maybe there's something there. And then I did, so this is really the beginning of the book.
Even closer, can you get it even there? Okay. The sun, the lion, the flower.
So this was the beginning of the book, and I thought, that will be it. And this is the very first This is the first draft of my book. I don't know if you can see that. It was called Today at first. It says, today the sun is out, today a flower grew, today I saw a lion. That was the beginning.
How long a period between drawing the mountain and the sailboat to the drawing of that? Was that on the same day, or is this over?
Oh, probably months. I mean, I keep a file full of folders of ideas, and that sunflower lion then, you know, morphed into this. I still didn't know really what I was doing at this point. And then I began doing something that I don't normally do. I really started doing, I did a jacket sketch before I even knew what the book was really about. And I had wanted to do a book about a lion for a long time. This is one of my all-time favorite books, called Ellen's Lion by Crockett Johnson. And Herbert the Lion, another great book by Claire Newberry.
Are those books still in print?
Ellen's Lion was reissued, I believe, a couple of years ago. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I think it's genius. And I have this this was my editor, Susan Hirschman's, when she was a girl, a little pottery cup. It says, good luck on it, and there's a lion. And the lion is unlike my lion, but I don't know, he was there at the beginning. I look at it every day. And so I was thinking, I think about these things, there's a long gestation period. And I also was thinking about how much I love black and yellow together. And I have this broken bowl that I keep in my studio. I just love the colors. And some of my favorite children's books. These are some of my favorite illustrations. Black and yellow.
Oh.
Beautiful. More black and yellow. This is While Susie Sleeps. But there's something very graphically charged about it for me. And I thought, if I do Sunflower Lion, it'll be perfect. This is Eve Rice's Good Night, Good Night. And I'll just show you one more. And this is interesting to me. The Madeline books are in full color, but then there are the black and yellow pages. And this illustration is probably my favorite in all of the Madeline books. I think it's simply elegant. It's perfect. So I was thinking about black and yellow, and I was thinking that would be perfect for this book. So I think I wanted to do a simple story. And then the idea came to me to do the chapters. And that's when it really gelled. At first, I didn't know if it would be 3 separate stories, the lion, the flower, and the sun, or if it would be one. But I wanted to introduce them, and I wanted the child listener, you know, to see how they were the same. So I thought introducing one, which would lead to the next, which would lead to the next, would be a good way to do that.
I don't recall another book that's for such a young child having chapters.
You know, I don't know. I remember Judith Casely did a picture book. I think it's called 3 Happy Birthdays. And I think there were 3 chapters in it. That would have come out in the late 80s, maybe.
Well, for me, it's the only one. So the thing that you do in this book that I don't think you've done in other books is that you address the child directly. Can you see it? You ask, can you see it? And then in narrative theory, we call this the reversal. You say, can you see it? And then you can see it. And then, can you see it? No, you can't, because but then at the end, yes, you can. The whole question has been answered. And it's so, again, it's a perfect arc. And I wondered how that invitation to the child came about in your mind.
Well, it came about, I had gone to several conferences, and I had spoken at a couple of conferences where someone from Reach Out and Read had spoken, or organizations that bring books to kids very young. And I heard from librarians and from doctors that it's not only getting books into the hands of guardians or parents or caregivers. A lot of caregivers would tell these people that they don't really know how to read a book. And reading a book is supposed to be this, interactive thing, and they don't know how to do it. And
You mean they don't know how to share it with a child?
Well, they know, like, you can read the words, but it's supposed to be this wonderful thing where you have a dialogue going, and and you can do it. You can say, oh, what is this? What color is this? Can you can take the child's hand and move it around the scalloped edge. I mean, there's so much to say when you look at a book, but I heard from professionals that people don't really know how to do that. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if the actual words encourage that kind of dialogue or give and take? This is the sun, can you see it? Well, if you're reading this to a child, they're going to say, I think, yes. And then you could say, where is it? Or they'll say, yes, there it is. And then, that leads to all the other kinds of questions. Is the sun shining today? Do you like it when the sun shines? I mean, all those kinds of things that make a book experience with a young child really deep and interesting. And that shared time becomes deeper and more than just the book. So that was one of the goals with asking that question and repeating it. So my hope is that this kind of book, and by leading with those questions, it sort of opens the door to that kind of experience with a book.
One of the things that I noticed just the other night, I was sitting on the floor in my room and reading through the stack, and how happy the books made me feel, and how comforted, like it was such a solace to be in your worlds in each book. And I feel that that the experience of reading the book is a private one, and that the child reading your books, even if it's being read to him, is led into a world that feels private.
Oh,
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Which is the experience of reading, as you get older. It's just it's a private experience. But I love that this book especially is, illuminates also the shared experience of two people in a book.
Right. And I think even if a child is being read to, I think we always bring to that experience our, everything that we are, so it becomes our own. And when you talked about, I think you said comfort, I am a believer that childhood, no matter how easy, is difficult. And children, I think, are powerless. And so when I am doing a young book, I really think about that. And I think about if there's some way that I can make this experience have a happy ending. And some of the books are about trials and tribulations of children or mice, but I guess it's my gift to the reader to have the ending be up a little bit. And part of it also, I think, is if you have now I'm talking about probably the mouse books. If you have a book where something happens and there's trouble of some sort or an obstacle of some sort and it's solved, if you have a child who has a diet of reading books and reads books all the time, often there is something that happens that's overcome. And I think it, over time, helps one deal with problems in the world. Because if you've had this experience time and time again of looking at these things in which a problem is solved, I think it can't not help you from thinking, oh, I can solve this, or, you know, it will work out perhaps.
There's also, I mean, the books also are infused with, well, just the colors, I'm wearing my yellow shirt.
I love that.
Go with this, just infused with warmth, and the child, you know, the mouse books, the children, mice in those families are the center of the family, and yet they're not the obnoxious spoiled child of the family. They're incorporated into the world of the family. So there's, I love both the primacy of the child and the fact that the child is in a big loving, or, you know, just a loving family. But one thing that I was thinking about, and I don't have the exact quote, and you might know it better than I can say it, but David Denby long ago was reviewing one of the Shrek movies, and he talked about how those movies go straight to sort of jokey cynicism and bypass awe, and how if a child misses that sense of awe and goes straight to that, you know, kind of the jokey, that, you know, that he and she are bereft. And I feel that, you know, many of your books and the books that you've done with Laura, your wife, are so rooted in the natural world and the beauty of the natural world. And when you fall into them, you are in awe.
Oh, I like that. Again, it goes back to what I want to present to the child, and jokey cynicism is not, I don't like jokey cynicism in my picture books. And I think there are so many picture books that are either preachy or glitzy or sarcastic or ironic. And I love humor, but it's coming at the humor, I suppose, from a different point of view. And I guess one is just drawn to what one is drawn to, and that's the kind of thing that I like.
So when you got the words for Sunflower Lion, or, you know, any of your books, because you've had two, and have two great editors through your life. So what has been the process like with Sunflower Lion? Was there much editing to do?
Not much editing. I mean, it took me a long time to get it to where I wanted it to be. And now what I usually do is I will read a picture book text to Virginia Duncan, my editor, on the telephone often. Then that will be the go ahead to proceed with a dummy, which is a mock-up of a book. And that's the way I've been working lately.
Is your heart beating as you're reading?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got the Legacy Award, which used to be called the Laura Ingalls Wilder Award, which is for your lifetime achievement. Congratulations. And I was reading the speech that you gave, the acceptance speech, to my husband when we were in the car recently, and I could not get through it. It made me cry so hard, especially when I got to the part about your first editor, Susan Hirschman, who you had for many, many years. And it's a story that you've told, you know, many times so people might know it, but you went to New York and you went up to her office and she took you in, and you were 19. And I mean, I don't want to tell the whole story, but it just seemed to me that meeting and the way she knew what she saw immediately and wanted to nurture you and support you, and you got a contract, and you know, you were this kid from Racine with your portfolio, and I think I was weeping because, and I could be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I just had the sense that something like that couldn't happen now.
I don't know. I only know what I know. And it was one of those magical moments. And I really feel as if in a certain way, not that my life began, but that my second life began. It was what I really wanted to do. and I was allowed to do it in a very big way. And Green Willow was my first choice for a publisher. So I could pick up my parents' telephone and call from Racine, Wisconsin, and call trade publishers in New York City and make an appointment for make an appointment to show a portfolio for children's book illustration. And I don't believe one can do that anymore. I've only been with one publisher, but I believe that now, one has to have an agent. And I think some publishers don't look at unsolicited manuscripts. So I think I don't know if it's harder, but I think it's probably very different from the way it was when I began. And I also think part of it may have been that Susan was different. Maybe even at that time, some publishers weren't doing that. And I'm not sure, I don't know, but I think it is different. And I'm grateful every day that it happened the way it happened, and it turned out the way it turned out.
Yes, and we are all grateful to you and the fact that you had Susan to guide you, and now Virginia, which maybe leads us to Lily and Friends, which is a collection of all of your what we call the mouse books, and you write this very lovely, stirring afterword. And there's I don't know, 7, 8 books or so. Nine. And you say that when you first saw them all together, you were really chuffed and overwhelmed. And I would think, like, this is your life.
I rarely, if ever, look at them as a whole. Every now and then I'll pull one off the shelf because I'll think, oh, I had a picture of the moon in the window, and how did I do it? Did I paint it with white paint, or did I leave the paper white? I mean, there are things like that. Or I'll think, oh, what was the pattern on that bedspread? But I don't look at them as a whole. So when I did look at them as a whole, I was in New York. I was in with Virginia Duncan, my editor, and Paul Zachris, my art director, and we had all the books on a table. And it was really I had a body reaction. It was sort of a jolt. And I saw my sort of adult life flash before me. I was, I think, 24 when I did A Weekend with Wendell, which is the first book in that collection, the first mouse book. And then when Lily's Big Day was published, which is the last book, I was married, I had 2 kids. So a lot of time had passed. And when I do look at the books, in some ways they do really mark time. I often remember what was going on in my personal life. When I look at, a book, I'll think, oh, I remember where I did the art for that book, what house we were in, or whatever. So it really was one of those moments. And that treasury seems big and hefty, and so that's sort of odd. I sometimes feel like I'm still the new kid on the block, but I'm 60 and I know that I'm not, but it still feels that way sometimes. So then when I see something like that, I'm reminded that I've been doing this for 40 years.
Oh my gosh, that is extraordinary. Well, you were talking before about humor, and the mouse books are very funny. And so 2 things about that. I was reading Chrysanthemum this morning, and her teacher's name is Mrs. Chud. And that just made me laugh out loud. It's just such a great name for, you could just see her. I had a teacher named Mrs. Troy, and I just think that Mrs. Chud, yes, perfect. So there's humor in the language, but also the fact that they're mice, I think, allows you to be funny in certain ways.
Oh, absolutely. There are certain things that using animal characters allows me to do that I don't think I could do with humans realistically rendered. In Julius, the Baby of the World, which is one of the books included in the Treasury, Lily gets a new baby brother, Julius, and she pinches his tail and screams in his ear. And if a human realistically rendered did the same kinds of things, it wouldn't probably be quite as funny. And by using animals and drawing them in a particular way, I think I can really tap into the text, tap into the humor, over dramatize things in a way that works, that perhaps wouldn't with humans. So it's very freeing. It's a nice thing to do. And I always thought of those little books as sort of like sitcoms.
Huh.
Like an episode of Leave It to Beaver. I mean, there's a little arc, there's a problem, and it has a nice.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's a fun way to think about it. There's what I think it's Chester's Way.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when Lily appears?
Lily appears in Chester's
Yeah,
Way.
and she's being in disguises, and you have one picture of her. I believe she has a cigarette holder when she's in her make-believe. She looks like Princess Margaret. To Princess Margaret. And I just thought, I mean, I was looking at it last night and I thought, am I seeing this correctly? I believe I am, which I'm guessing you could not do that today, have a child with a cigarette.
It's really funny, again, the passage of time. When I did that, Chester and Wilson are very civic-minded and safety-minded, and they use hand signals when they ride their bicycles, but they don't wear helmets because that wasn't what one did at that time. And of course, now if I did it, they would be wearing helmets for sure. Extra thick. But yeah, I mean, it is funny how even within my lifetime, things have changed.
Is it Sheila Ray who has the squirt gun? Oh no, it's Lily.
Lily has the
Lily,
squirt.
yeah. Would you be able to? Would you get away with a squirt gun?
I don't know if I'd even do it now. I think that would be self-editing that I would do probably. Be my guess.
It's essential to the plot, however.
It is essential to the plot.
Gotta have that thing.
Rewrite it. Things change.
I think one of the things that I know we've talked about that has changed is that in the old days, Susan Hirschman didn't have to go to any committee to, there wasn't talk in committee about what was allowed or permissible or what to change. She was the editor, she edited. And I think it's very different really in all fields now. I mean, with all, grown-ups, children, that where it's sort of by committee. And there's a lot of conversation about every little detail, which I think could be difficult if you were somebody who was, a master editor. Like, I don't need this input.
Yeah, I think that is very different. In my early years, I would typically go to New York and Green Willow for a week, sometimes twice a year, and Susan would often find an empty office for me where I could work, and I loved it. But I don't remember there being lots of meetings or any meetings of that sort. Of course, Susan would meet with authors and illustrators in her office. But it seems like it's very different now. There are lots of meetings. And I think people from different departments, have things to say about how a book looks and in a way that I don't remember from in the early years for sure.
I know that with Kitten's first full moon, you were very sure that it, was in black and white, and that went to committee and people didn't think that was a good idea.
Yes, I think the line was, I have Kitten. I think the line was that Barnes and Noble wouldn't buy it or wouldn't take nearly as many if it was in black and white. And this book is interesting because it really, I think of it as my bridge book between the old Green Willow and the new Green Willow, because Susan had accepted the book and Ava Weiss was my art director. But by the time the book was published, Virginia was editor of Green Willow. Susan had retired. and Paul Zachris was art director. So I think of this as a book that bridged that time, but I really wanted it to be black and white, and I remember struggling over that. And I had even done a sample in color, and I didn't show it to anyone because I thought if the people who are wanting it in color see it, they'll think, oh yes, that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You were right.
And a tiny segue. It's so interesting to me. I think of these as cousins. This is about the moon and a female kitten, and this is about the sun and a lion cub, and it's about going on a little journey and ending at home with food. And I never consciously knew that when I was doing it, and now it just seems so obvious to me. But and it's funny, and I'm sure you know that too, how I think sometimes we all do things without really knowing that we're doing them, or things come out of us without our knowing that they're there to begin with.
So true. Well, there was an event last night with Jane Smiley, and I was reading 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel, and she maintains that a writer, an artist, is fully conscious of what she's putting on the page, and maybe she is, but I haven't had that experience, and it sounds like, I mean, afterwards, yes, you look, you have to make the thing before you know what it is you've made, which is yeah. Somebody here, which kind of, she's says, Carol Surgeon says, I can't help but notice that you have quite a collection of children's picture books. Can you talk about that? How you've collected all of them and how you use them in your work?
Well, I mean, doing children's books, I mean, it's my life's work, and I love it. It's the love of my life. So I love books. And so I have many behind me and all over the house. We have books everywhere. And now I do collect them. I collect what I love. The great thing about having Susan as my editor is she worked on many of the books that I loved. And I think we have very similar tastes in what we think is a good book. And over the years, Susan has given me great gifts, and I've loved when I would travel and Susan would sometimes go with me, and we would, try to find used bookstores and look. So I love books and I love having them, and they inform my work. I mean, I held up Ellen's Line before, and many of the books that I loved as a child, I think, have shaped the books that I create as an adult. And I think perhaps there wouldn't be the Mouse books if it hadn't been for Russell Hoban's Francis books. I mean, they, are sort of that same model of a story. So I love having books. I love returning to books that I have for inspiration. I think that the great thing about a good book, a book that is real art, I think you can return to it again and again. And often I will see things that I hadn't seen before. I think as a person changes, the book changes with them sometimes. And I return to them for inspiration all the time. I often will just go through the shelf and pick something out and look at it and marvel at it. It's just like going back to it's like going to a museum. I mean, you would continue to go to look at the paintings that you love to look at. And it's the same way for me with books.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I would never want to say which is my favorite book, but I really love Waiting, which can you talk about the book that inspired this, or that kind of Because wasn't it an Augustine book that sort of you were thinking of a little?
It's so funny. Waiting now seems like a million years ago, but M.B. Goffstein, who is one of my favorite authors and illustrators, did a book that I love called Me and My Captain. And it's about a little figurine who longs after another figurine. And it's an extraordinary book. And it's sort of about the power of the imagined life. I think that happens while one is waiting. And that was one of the seeds for that. And I was just thinking there are so many, the Carrot Seed, again, by Crockett Johnson, illustrated by Crockett Johnson, words by Ruth Krauss, was another book that was a seed that I think was in the mix for the beginning of waiting. And again, I think children wait all the time. It's just part of, I think, being a child. It's part of being a person, but I think children have to wait all the time. And it's funny that you say that. I was just getting things ready for today in case I needed them. And I came across some notes that I had taken when I had been on a book tour for waiting. And at a school, I think it was first and second graders, I can't remember where it was, but the teacher had given all the students a piece of paper that said, I am waiting for blank. And the kids filled in the blank with their phonetic spelling. And there were the typical things like, I am waiting for Halloween. I'm waiting for my birthday. I am waiting to get my ears pierced. There was one that said, I'm waiting for God to come and take me home. And I wrote this down because it just gave me pause. And then there was another one that said, I am waiting for my tummy to settle. I wrote it down. I remember walking down the hallway and saying, I have to copy some of these down.
OMG, as they say.
The range of waiting, you know.
That just reminds me that when this book came out, I read it to my mother and her table mates who were in the dementia unit, and they too were waiting big time. And one of them, who was particularly sentient, loved this book so much. And I thought, Kevin, like this is the book for 0 to 99. You've done it. So there's a person named Dean Robbins who says the book has such a dreamlike quality in which unlike things become alike via fantastical metaphors. Do dreams play a role in your creative process?
Ooh, hi, Dean. I don't know if they play a role in my creative process. And I think the way I can best explain it, and it's mostly with my longer books, not the picture books so much, but if I'm working on a novel and I'm deep into it, I will dream about it. And that happens, the older I get, the more it happens. The last novel I worked on, a couple of plot points came to me in dreams and in the middle of the night. And I do keep now a notebook often by my bedside table if I'm working on a novel, because I'll often wake up and something will be right there. And I know if I don't write it down, it will be gone. So yeah, dreams do play a role in it, I think.
Just switching to reality, in the creation of the book, the paper, the type, the heft of the paper, every piece that goes into the book is of utmost concern to you. And you've had great art directors who have worked with you, and you've each respected each other and your need to get it right. And I just, again, I don't want to sound like an old person, but are more and more picture books being written for the iPad? Or do you think that's sort of a passing thing?
I don't know. I really worried about that for a while and thought maybe it was the end of, the physical book. And I don't worry about it anymore. It seems like that maybe is not the case. I was really concerned about that because there's so much about a physical book that is important. There's not only the size and the shape, and even if you maintain those proportions on a device, you're not going to get the size in the same way because the device remains the same. So if you have a big square book on a device, it might not look any different than a small square book. And if you have a long horizontal book, you know, you're going to lose so much. And there's something, I mean, I've never done one, but I love little books. And what a little book conveys is so different than what a big book conveys. And there's so much about that part of a book that underscores everything that's inside the book. So it's all, you know, it's all part of that world that you're creating.
Mm-hmm. Here's a board book.
Oh, a little board book, yeah.
So I think some people might be surprised to learn that you go to writers like Alice Munro and William Trevor, and you return to them and William Maxwell, and that those you know, very, I don't want to say adult because that sounds wrong, but you know, those masters of the adult form remain and have been a real nourishment to you and inspiration. And so somebody might say, well, you know, how does Alice Munro impact? How do we get from Alice Munro to the stuffed animal in Kayleen's store?
Well, I would just say I love to read, and those are three of many writers who I return to. They feed my soul. They're the kind of writers that I can reread. I reread some of those writers' works every year, and it is like reading something for the first time. Even if I know, you know, the arc of a particular Alice Munro story or William Trevor story, reading it again is like reading it for the first time because it's so often dense. There's so much between the lines, even though they may be simple and elegant and spare in a particular way. I think they are masters at there being space between the lines, emotion between the lines, things that are hinted at that aren't perhaps, you know, fully written on the page. So it's a real a give and take between the reader and the writer, and they inspire me. And good writing inspires me, even if the good writing is very different than what I hope is my good writing, you know, for a very young, you know, reader, listener.
I mean, I guess I remain in sort of continual awe that you can, and you touched upon it before, but you understand, it seems, you are in touch with a 2-year-old. You know what a 2-year-old, what a very young child needs. And when I read this to a 2-year-old, it was just so, you know, that child wasn't yet ready for corduroy. That was sort of that would be a narrative leap, but or even Lily, but this was just, it was perfect. And to know, to hit that, and maybe you're not even thinking I'm gonna shoot for, you know, but it's still, it's in you somehow, and you have access to that stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm really, the older I get, the more I'm drawn to very simple books. The more I'm drawn to like the essentials, and maybe I'm I don't know. I'm working on a picture book right now that's about the world, but it's very, very young, and it's a very, very young child's view of the world. And that's much easier for me to comprehend. It's much easier for me to write about than it would be to write about a 60-year-old's view of the world. I'm
Oh, why do that?
Yeah, why do that?
This is just speaking of genre. Somebody said, was talking about, my daughter's favorite children's book is Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. We saw it at First Stage in Milwaukee, so that became a play.
It did become a play, yes, which was very exciting for me. It premiered at the Seattle Children's Theater, and I had approval of the script, I remember. And I remember thinking back when this was happening that at a certain point, I just decided to give it up because it seemed to me that it was a different art form. It wasn't the book. I would always have the book, and I wanted to let it go and let, whoever was directing it to put their stamp on it, and whoever was, designing the costumes and the set and all of that. So I remember sort of letting my approval go. And I saw the play in Milwaukee. I saw it in Seattle. I saw it in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. And it was really fun to see it in different places, to see how different people did it. And some of the productions I thought were extraordinary and really did it so well.
Did they was it like the Nutcracker where they had mice suits?
They often, you'd still see the human face, but they had ears and noses, and I think some perhaps had whiskers, if I remember correctly. But you saw the human. And some places did it where Lily and Chester and Wilson were children, and Mr. Slinger was, and Lily's parents were adults. And some places did it where all the actors were adults. So it was very interesting to see it done differently.
Huh. Okay, wait. I wonder if you've gotten this question ever before. Which of your books is the foodiest? My 21-month-old grandson will love that cookies are featured in the newest.
The foodiest. Oh my God, I've never been asked that. Although one of my favorite stories, as it relates to food, is with Kitten's First Full Moon. And there was a young man who worked in the art department at Green Willow when this book came out, and he gave a copy to, I think it was his cousin's child. It was a young child, and the child loved the book and loved this page so much that I don't remember now if it was a boy or girl, but he or she licked a hole in the page because they were mimicking Kitten. So that's pretty foodie.
That's very foodie. Oh my gosh, that's very funny. I'm sure, I know you have just hundreds and hundreds of funny stories that are your encounters with your readers. And maybe we should just schedule another Zoom thing to talk about them. But I know that you wrote Billy Miller. This is a middle reader. Is that what they're?
Middle grade.
And you have a new Billy Miller book coming out.
I even have it right here.
Billy Miller
Makes a
Wish. That's right, Billy. So, and when is that coming?
It comes out in April. April 6th, 2021.
You are just.
Can I show you the jacket of the book that comes after Billy Miller?
Yes.
Okay, this is a first for me. I have a picture book, very, very young, in the vein of Sunflower Lion. The words ask lots of questions, and the book is called A House. And this is the jacket I always thought it would be great fun to do a jacket with no type on the front, but it never worked. But this book is called A House. So this is the front of the jacket. This is the back of the jacket, so it's all there, but
That is wonderful.
very
Did that-
exciting.
Did that freak the publishers out a little bit?
Well, I was worried. I did it thinking this is never going to happen. And everyone seemed to think it was great. I really did not think it would happen. So I had a plan where the type could go and how it would look. But
Is that book completely finished?
yes, I'm done.
You are no slouch, Kevin Henkes.
I like to work. And now I can't travel anywhere, or, I would have gone out on the road, done a book tour for Sunflower Line and the Treasury, but I'm at home. So
Has that been good for you in a way?
I think good and bad. I'm working a lot, which is good. I think the one thing that I've realized that I didn't know before was that when I do go out, I stop working on, what I'm working on. And I think that's good. That can be good. So I often will force myself to work on something else. I'll do a painting on canvas, or I make little collages, and I've done many, dozens since March, since we've been sheltering at home. So, and I think traveling, I mean, it's not that I travel far and wide, but going to New York, I miss enormously. I love going to New York. I miss that, but hopefully soon we'll be able to do that again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just been wonderful to talk to you and
oh my gosh, that went fast.
And think about all the books. And I love this book, and I have really enjoyed sharing all your books with children in my life, starting with my own, and they hold you in their heart. And there's many, many comments of love in the chat. And wait, I just want to get this one, which is Kevin, we miss your Lighthouse Run t-shirts. So I'm just saying, if this writing thing doesn't work out for you, you could
go back to doing t-shirts.
Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and
Wow.
thank you, and thanks to Daniel and Kayleen.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Kayleen. I had a wonderful time. Thank you, Jane.
We have a few more questions, which we'll send to you somehow, maybe through Jackie, and if you feel like because there's a lot of old friends and stuff who wrote notes to you and stuff, so maybe you'll be able to somehow say hi back,
Okay,
mail them a letter or something. Thank you. Kayleen, would you like to say a thank you too?
Thank you so much, Daniel, Kevin, Jane. Happy holidays.
See you soon. Hey, everyone, shop at your bookstores.
Yeah.
Between now and December 24th, and then also into the new year. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.